Okay, so now we're going to be doing a teardown of the new 25th anniversary Vital Bracelet B. For reference, this is exactly the same thing as this Vital Bracelet B that's actually on my wrist right now. It's just that this one has a little skin or a cover that I'm not very fond of, and I think these videos are really good for people to kind of just understand how their device works, and if something goes wrong, what they can do to address or troubleshoot some of their parts. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. There are two screws on the back over here. They are just Phillips head screws. You could probably use something like a J00 or just like the smallest Phillips head you can find. And let's go ahead and just get this guy open. And what you'll notice is with this particular Vital Bracelet is this part just kind of comes off like so. And the little pegs that you see here, these little like adapters, these will just pop right out. I'm actually not going to take this out entirely, but you can just lift that off with your finger and then put it on. You can put it onto a different bracelet or whatever you want to do with this. I'm going to go ahead and leave these off because what I'm more interested in is going to be this. And actually, as we kind of go forward, I'm going to just kind of keep my camera zoom and focus on so we can switch back and forth between focuses. So let me see. Yeah, we're doing a live test. I apologize. Okay, so this is the main module, and one of the things that I've mentioned in my early first impressions video and unboxing, which if I do a good job as a YouTuber, should be right around like here or so. And I'm also doing a giveaway for a brand new 25th anniversary Vital Bracelet. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and check that out. But the big question that everybody has is this the same as the original Vital Bracelet inside? So let's go ahead and just break into this guy. So we have 4 screws over here using roughly the same size Phillips head screws as before. And one of the things about the B specifically that's different is there's no power switch. So I think that accounts for the device being significantly thinner, because if you've ever seen a lot of these like 3-stage switches, they do take up a good like 3 to 5 millimeters of space, and for something that originally clocked in at 20 millimeters, that's pretty sizable. It looks like most of the construction, though, from what we've seen before, was largely the same, but we're gonna find out for sure this time. So if it's anything like last time, you should be able to, you can split this guy open and make sure that you pop the cover flaps out so nothing is still stuck in between, and this thing should just slowly sandwich out. So let's take a look at this real quick. So the front screen, you'll notice already that it's significantly smaller and it's more lower to the ground, and that was one of the reasons why this device got slimmer, is because there was actually an air gap between the screen and this screen housing, and now it's actually flush, or relatively close to flush. I mean, you could see it kind of just sits on here, and that allows it to save a little bit of space. And then we have a very similar style of like silicone housing as we did before on the charger and the DIMM card slot, or the B memory slot. As far as the buttons go, this one looks like it's just injection molded plastic, and let me see if I can get it right there. It's just injection molded plastic that you should be able to kind of just pop out these 2 little tabs if you really felt like it. One of my personal criticisms about oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's very interesting. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked here, I think. Oh, yeah. So one of my common critiques about the original Vital Bracelet was that there was actually just like a thin strip of plastic that had a ribbed cell in the middle, and that little ribbed cell is actually this like thin line of plastic that touches and presses against these little micro switches here, and that's what caused the button clicks. And what happens is if basically, like, if this is the button and there's this tiny thin piece of plastic, if it's misaligned, it'll kind of move and shift. It'll make mushy presses because you're not hitting it directly on. You can scrape or even damage the button as a result. It was just kind of poor design, and visually I thought this was going to be improved, and while I think the contact point is better, I'm really curious because my button here looks like it's kind of shaved off a little bit. I mean, you can kind of see it here. Let me see if I can zoom in more. And I don't know the extent of how often this will happen to people. Oh man, I cannot get the right there. So like here, that's not flush. It's actually kind of angled, and it looks like it's been ground down. And there's definitely a couple of marks here on my button housing. There's like a little bit of powder. I don't know how important that's going to be in the grand scheme of things, but that is, you know, something to consider. One really cool thing though that I do really appreciate Bandai doing, and this is actually an idea that I had a while back, I just didn't have the resources to do it, was there is finally a gasket here, and this gasket helps with it being splash resistant. If you really wanted to get sweaty, no pun intended, you can actually probably apply like a dielectric grease or something in here and then add to the water resistance even more, to which point the only two places you have to worry about would be the button again. And actually, looking at this button, I think there is a gasket here, which is commendable. I have to give Bandai the credit if that's the case. I'm going to try to actually pop this button out. We're going to just kind of press at the tabs. I do always recommend to be careful when doing this because you can potentially damage the button permanently. And yeah, look, check this out. There is a gasket, which is really cool. That's probably why some of these tabs got ground down, because someone was trying to apply it, would be my guess, and they botched it during assembly or what have you. But that's really cool that this splash resistant claim is probably pretty decent. I'll be honest, like the way that this is built, between this housing here, this being fully enclosed, I would honestly feel okay if I were to wash my hands with this. And actually, you know, I'm going to be wearing this for a week to give a full review. I'm probably going to wear, oops, you can't see because it's out of focus. I'm probably going to be wearing this now while like washing my hands and stuff, because I think it's actually going to be perfectly fine for stuff like going to the gym, sweating a little bit, being in the rain. I think that's honestly going to be a-okay. So kudos to Bandai for doing that. I think one of the things when I mentioned earlier was that this felt wider than the original Vital Bracelet for some reason, and I think a good majority of that reason is because of this outer housing over here to create that gasket. So to me, that's a trade-off that's more than welcome. A couple of other things. There's now only, there's only one screw on this side, and it looks like the other screw is on this side, so we're going to go ahead and remove those real fast. And they are a different set of screws internally, so if you're keeping track of these have their own size. Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and try to pop this out and butterfly it. So very similar to how the last one, Vital Bracelet, was. You can move this over, and here we see a very familiar look. We've got a speaker that is built in and is soldered directly on, well, not really soldered, it's actually kind of held in by melted plastic, and then we have the heart rate sensor. So a couple of interesting things though is that the actual board, the battery is actually slightly larger at 160 milliamps versus 150, which is kind of neat. The dimensions are 40 by 17 by 3 millimeters, so for anyone who does need a battery, you can get yourself a 160 milliamp hour battery at 3.7 volts. And you should be able to replace that pretty easily, which is sweet. I really commend that. We're going to do something that a lot of people don't like doing, and that's removing this heart rate sensor and this speaker. I may destroy my speaker wire in doing so, as this does happen from time to time. I don't recommend people who like losing their sound to do this, but you actually can oftentimes, and we're going to do this for the first time live here. Actually, before I even do that, oh, no, it's fine. I just saw that there's like a little, kind of like a smudge on there, and I was wondering if that was me, because that looks like a failed solder point, but I haven't done anything yet, and it's not on the battery, so I guess that's just residual plastic. Anyways, we're going to attempt to do this live, and it's going to be hard to see, so I apologize. But I want to see if this is just as sensitive as it was on the original Vital Bracelet in the Digivice V, because basically if you pulled at the red wire, it was a death sentence, and you were basically going to lose your speaker. The black wire was a little bit better, but this whole procedure is tricky, to say the least. And the way they have it wired now may be even trickier. So for those who are you know, a little faint of heart, I apologize. Actually, I wonder if I can zoom in. Yeah, let's zoom in. Oh, that's as much as I can zoom. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and they're the same procedure for the heart rate sensors, more or less. There's these two little plastic pegs that get soldered down, and actually you could probably just take a pry tool and pop it open. Yep, like that, and you can see little bits of plastic fly out. So that part's taken care of. The next part is the tricky part, and unlike last time where they only had one contact point, so here again you can see this little blob where plastic was melted. They used to do one, maybe two, and now this one has 3 bits of melted plastic, so they are really making my life difficult. But these speakers can be relatively easily replaced if you have some soldering skills. So it's not the end of the world. I'm also not really big into the speaker as a whole. I find them kind of annoying. I think it's a really cute concept, but in practice it just drives me insane. So if I break this, I break it. Who cares? So we're gonna try to see. The goal is if you can fit like an X-Acto knife under here and kind of slice away at this residual plastic. That's how you want it out. But honestly, this looks way more aggressive than most of the vital bracelets I work with. Okay, so I think I managed. Oh, see, and what I fear is I am bending the speaker and doing this. So, oh, there we go. I think I got it. So we'll do a sound test after this to make sure I didn't break it, because maybe I did. Okay. All right. So, oh my gosh, there's glue on here as well. So yeah, I gotta say, I don't know if the other vital bracelet Bs are like this, but if that's the case, it may actually just be easier for people to solder on their own speaker rather than toying with this one that's currently on here, because this is aggressive, to say the absolute least. Like I've done several, like literally hundreds of these, and they have never been this bad. And even the ones that were this tough, I still felt like it was doable. This, oh yeah, look, can you guys see this? There's glue everywhere all over this. In fact, I actually just broke a piece of the speaker doing that. So this is dead. This is definitely dead. Let's turn this guy on. So yeah, I definitely chipped a piece of the speaker out. If you can see, you cannot see that. Hang on. So here, like I took a chunk out of the speaker. I think it's possible to do this though, but I think it's going to be difficult. Yeah, speaker's dead. So it's probably easier for you to actually just go and resolder this thing. But we'll revisit this here in a bit. I have a couple of other VBs that I want to mess with. I'll probably take this one apart too, because I am curious about some of the fitments of this, because it looks like the overall construction is just different enough that I do need to kind of reconsider how things are done. But anywho, back to what we have here. On the heart rate sensor, actually one thing to note, there's this little like foam padding that's around the sensor now. And I don't know if that's because of water resistance or what, because last time there's a piece of glass here, and this is like actual true glass, this isn't plastic. And it covers the device like pretty well. So here you can see my damaged speaker and all the glue, and yeah, a little bit of foam padding there. I wonder if that's just to like prevent light from leaking or what, but really neat and a good water resistant measure. I'm gonna go ahead and pull. Oop, that came out really easily. Pulling this battery out, there's the same type of, and there's a little B memory slot or DIM card slot, whatever we want to call it. This has the same foam padding as before, so this is just foam adhesive that tells you, hey, we've got a lithium-ion battery with a shield, and that comes off relatively easily. And then over here, this looks very familiar. So again, we've got the two buttons here. We've got your DIMM card / B memory slots, micro USB, and then we have the cable for the screen itself. I presume if I were to take this over, flip it around, there is this little peg that I gotta just remove. Yep, and the plastic screen cover comes right off. This looks very similar to before, where we have the flash memory over here, and we have the screen itself with the NFC tag. I'm not gonna go ahead and remove this like I usually do, but it looks like a lot of the construction is the same. The key differences are that on this side, there is no longer a power switch, so a couple of things have moved. Like the battery looks like it's shifted just a tiny bit. I wonder if I have a spare board. Oh yeah, I do. So let me get one. I have a lot of damaged boards. So this is the original Vital Bracelet board, and this one, oops, let me get this battery out of the way. This one is the B. So they are remarkably similar, which could bode well for me. But yeah, I think if you're looking to get these things replaced, a lot of this stuff is going to be a very similar story. Now the question is is this going to fit the Vital Pet and the Vital Watch, the two products that I make? I mean, honestly, most likely, but I'm going to go ahead and test that kind of offline here because I want to make sure that the fitment's good. Maybe I'll do it on stream or something. But yeah, I think that's everything. Kind of a shame about the speaker. Actually, you know what? Let's take this a step further. I'm going to keep mine active. Let's go grab another B. Alright, so I'm not going to be using this one. I am curious to see how glued in this speaker module is going to be. If it's going to be just as aggressive as before, or is it going to be closer to what we're more accustomed to with the original Vital bracelets. So let's go ahead and pop these little bands off. And we're getting a little sidetracked here, but it wouldn't be a Veek video without doing something completely irrelevant. So let's get that guy off. And again, 4 more screws. We should probably talk about reassembly because that'll matter. I think it's relatively straightforward. And this time around, again, we're only interested in that back housing. Alright, so if I remove this flap, remove that flap, let's take a look at, oh, there goes the seal. Little waterproofing seal. I love that they did that. I'm actually very proud of Bandai for doing that. And let's, oh yeah, they're screwed in still. Alright. Okay, so if we are to remove this, yeah, it's just as aggressive. Look at that. There are 3 different glue / solder points. They went crazy on the B for that. So I'll just have to say, if anyone is out there looking to modify their devices, you need to be very, very conscious of that, because if you care about your sound, it's going to be very difficult for you to not absolutely obliterate the speaker. Now, again, there are places where you can go online to like AliExpress or whatnot and buy extra speakers to just solder back in. It's a very easy soldering job, but it's still a soldering job. So if that's something that you're not comfortable with, do keep that in mind. Also, if you're looking to replace the stock speaker and put it back in the stock Vital bracelet, you need to find a way to glue or adhere the speaker back on, because these speakers rely on resonance to make as loud of a sound as it does. So if you're like me and you do want to keep the sound and you want it quieter, then you don't have to glue it back on. You can just kind of let it sit there. But if the loudness matters to you, then you guys need to be conscious of that as well. Everything else looks to be pretty much standard though. So same thing goes, like if your micro switches, if your buttons go out, there are, I should probably talk about that, because this is probably the most common ask that I get is, hey, if this breaks, what can I do? And obviously this is a standard vital bracelet, but the concept is identical. Here on this micro switch, there are 4 different contact points. Basically, if you can find this exact button, which unfortunately I don't have the part number, if you can find this button, you can actually just unsolder these 4 contact points and then just solder a new one back in. That'll fix it. Same thing goes to the battery. Same thing goes for the heart rate sensor, although good luck finding a heart rate sensor of this caliber. I use the word caliber lightly. This is a 12 millimeter piezo speaker, which I found multiple of these in the past. I am probably going to buy a boatload of these for people who eventually do grab something like a vital pet or something, because it's probably going to be easier for me to include one of these and to have an end user solder them than it is for them to break their device or something like that. I don't know what we're going to do about that yet. We'll kind of have a conversation about it. But essentially that's everything with the VBB. To reassemble everything, obviously you put your speaker back if you had it, you put your heart rate sensor back, battery goes on top. The screen bracket, just make sure that you get the little peg reinserted back in here and it sits snugly, and then from there screw these 2 back on, screw the cover back on. Make sure, actually, just kind of while I was messing with this, make sure that you get this gasket, sorry, make sure you get this gasket back on flush. So I use kind of just a screwdriver to kind of just layer it down. You'll know immediately if it's not on because it looks like it's physically coming off. And honestly, that's it. Overall, I think the changes that Bandai has done, for the most part, I wholeheartedly agree with everything except for the speaker bit. I don't know what the reasoning behind that was. My guess, if I had to take any gander, actually, I don't even know. I was going to say my guess was going to be water resistance. But if we look at the speaker location, the original Vital Bracelet had little holes that protruded to, emanate more sound. This doesn't even have any holes. So the fact that they added extra adhesion and extra glue and extra solder points on there doesn't really make much sense to me. Maybe they had some QC issues, which they definitely have. So maybe that was a concern. So maybe a better safe than sorry thing. But it definitely makes the modding process a lot harder for people who like maintaining their speakers. So definitely something to be aware of. Other than that, though, yeah, I think Bandai did a pretty solid job, all things considered. By the end of the day, it is still a Vital Bracelet, so you'll know whether or not you love it or hate it. But that is pretty much everything as I attempt to reinstall everything back. There we go. And interesting. Yeah, it definitely, with these, you definitely know whether or not something fits because they will, yeah, there you go. There's there's a tiny bit of sponginess to it, so you'll know if something is caught, or this, the seal, in my case, I didn't have the seal in all the way either. You can kind of feel it for yourself, which is kind of neat. So just make sure that, things are seated properly before you do that. But all in all, I think it's a pretty sweet device. Personally, I'm still not going to wear it after this week because I would rather have it in a Vital Pet. There will be a future post about this. I'm going to do another YouTube channel update about kind of what's going to happen with the Vital Pet as a whole. Now and in the future, is it going to be compatible with the B and all that other stuff. So I think that's it as I screw in this last screw. It's been fun. Thank you. Whoa. Thank you to everyone who watches these videos, who comments. If you guys do find any of the parts for the Vital Bracelets, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll either pin them or I'll add them to the description as I find them, and we determine that these are, viable parts. But honestly, a lot of these stuff are pretty run-of-the-mill items, so it should be fine. But anyways, thank you so much, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.